Everybody, welcome to the show, Sheryl Crow. Hello. Hi, Sheryl. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing well. You know, you got a lot going on this week. Both things coming out on Friday.
It's kind of a funny thing because after Friday, it's going to feel really strange because I will have told a lot of stories that people will not have known about me. So, we'll see if I'm walking down the street on Saturday, anybody throws like a tomato at me or comes over and hugs me and says, "You're going to be okay."
Not that you've ever necessarily left the spotlight, but what does it feel like to now be kind of shipped really deep back into the spotlight?
It feels different. When I was approached about doing a documentary, I didn't really want to do it because I felt like, it's kind of all out there, and documentaries are typically done when somebody's already gone on. And
Sure.
I felt like, gosh, I've got a lot more living and a lot more writing and recording to do. But, in reflection, there's 30 or 40 years of real hardcore living that is my story. I was a school teacher. I waited tables. I went on the road with Michael Jackson. I came back and nobody signed me to a record deal, so I went back to waiting tables. Made my first record, when I was 28 or 29, and already had a fully realized life, and then became well known, and had to really endure a lot of sexism in my business, which is obviously music, and had some really hard challenges, from cancer to ageism to, it's all in there. And I wanted to be able to tell the story of the person and not the celebrity.
Yeah, you mentioned being very hesitant to get into this project and get all of your memories and thoughts and stories out there, of which there are many in a 30-year career that you've had. I know your manager kind of helped you push towards doing it as well, but what for you was the pivotal moment where you wanted to go through with it and decided, you know what, my story should be out there?
Well, honestly, I had some encouragement from younger artists. Brandi Carlile was really, she was one of the people that said, you have to do this. And her story is in the documentary, but she had told me that story long before about how she was in the audience at Lilith, and that I had been an artist that made her want to do what she's doing. And for me, there were a lot of women that I had that same experience with, from Stevie Nicks to Carole King, who sort of not only paved the way, but kind of sort of gave me a ticket out of my hometown in some ways. I'm from a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, and I poured over those records, and I wanted to be like them, and I could play by ear, and started getting into all this music, and I found myself in it, and I just followed that dream.
You spoke about looking up to a lot of people. I know you've also looked up to people like Willie Nelson or Bonnie Raitt, because Bonnie Raitt, had an entire band full of men and just her at the front and the forefront of it all. So that's really cool to see you in a similar position as them. Does it feel weird that a lot of people around the world want to be now like you, as you wanted to be like them?
It's the highest compliment. I'm always really humbled, and it's very emotional as well. It has meant so much to me to have the people that ushered me in, support me, and then to be able to do that for younger artists is, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? You hope that you're writing songs that are like the ones that meant so much to you. And we played Bonnaroo a few years ago. In fact, it's in the documentary. And I was really worried when I looked out there in the field that no one was going to come, because, I've been around so long, and I think of Bonnaroo as being for all these young people. And sure enough, when we walked out, it was just a sea. It was packed, and all these young people singing the lyrics to these songs that were older than them, and just knowing that a lot of these songs were the soundtrack to their lives, and that means a lot.
Yeah, I think being around for so long, it sounds like a negative, but I feel like in your case and a lot of other cases, it's a real positive. It's great. And who wouldn't want to see you on a festival today, in my mind?
It's an incredible thing to be a legacy artist, but at the same time, it's also like, you're a legacy artist, it means you haven't gone away. And for me, I look at people like Robert Plant, who I do feel like is just making some of his greatest music. And I feel that way about writing and recording now. I feel like I'm so inspired and I have so much more to do. And it's kind of liberating knowing that I'm not trying to get on very youthful radio, but that I can still do what I'm doing and be pumped up about it.
And in this documentary, I kind of want to dive into the themes a little more. I think one of the points that intrigued me the most was the songwriting. And in between your most popular songs or your radio hits, I feel like there is a lot of personal storytelling that you've alluded to through the lesser known songs. What are some of those songs that you think encapsulate you and encapsulate your life at any given point?
I'm always really, I've sort of announced I'm not making albums anymore. That I like the immediacy of writing a song and putting it out, especially if it has some sort of social commentary. But I tell young artists all the time, make albums and know that the songs that make the radio are not necessarily going to be your favorite songs, and they're not necessarily going to be the songs that tell the story of who you are. Mm-hmm. That it's the deep cuts, it's the album cuts that you write, and that invariably somebody will come up to you in a Starbucks and say, that song told my story or meant so much to me. And I have quite a few of those. I have a song called Weather Channel that was written at this sort of deepest, darkest moment for me. And I joke around about how it's just this really sweet song about suicidal tendencies. But I mean, it's, everybody has low lows, and it's learning how to navigate those low lows, how to get out of them. A song like Redemption Day was so personal for me. And then ultimately, Johnny Cash heard it and he recorded it. And then I got to use his vocal on Threads and create a new version of it. And the lyrics still hold meaning for me. They still tell the story about why we go into some countries and why we don't, to help the people or to protect them. Mm-hmm. So you get those nuggets all through your career, and they may not be the successful ones, but they're the ones that you scratch your head and go, where did that come from?
Especially in this documentary, I feel like there are a lot of awesome things that happen in your career that, of course, everybody knows about, but there's another side of darker things and tougher moments that you've been being more open about as of late. What did it feel like to you to kind of piece everything together from the very beginning to where you are right now? And was it a bit difficult?
It was kind of surreal. I mean, honestly, I chose a fantastic director in Amy Scott, whose documentary about Hal Ashby I just loved. And I trusted her. I loved her artistic choices that she'd done on that documentary, and I felt like I was in safe hands. There were probably 7 or 8 other documentaries that landed on the cutting room floor. I mean, there's a huge world of experiences out there that didn't make the cut. And she and her team were really careful and also very intuitive about the story they felt like was the most important to tell. And some of those stories were hard to tell. I told her in the beginning, I don't want to make a documentary that's just a retrospective on all the hits and all the accolades and and all the awards and all that. I wanted to tell the story about the person, and in the end, even though it was kind of hard to go back through a lot of that and tell those stories, because they're stories I've never told, it feels good, because I know that those stories are not relegated to just my experience. Women all over the world are in situations that are uncomfortable, but at least now they're given an opportunity to speak their truth, and not be vilified. And, women all over the world are getting older and kind of being disqualified from getting a seat at the table. And, a lot of what I'm going through and have been through are the stories of a lot of women.
Good luck with everything surrounding the movie on Friday, surrounding the album and the eventual book. You're on fire lately. We all love to see it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.